Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
My parents gave us a country house as a wedding gift. But I've already promised it to my sister. You and I will be fine in a one-bedroom with my mom, my husband said as he got into the car. What happened next changed everything. Valeria adjusted her hair and smoothed out her light blue dress, which conveniently concealed the barely noticeable baby bump. 3 months pregnant wasn't quite the time when everything became obvious, but some changes in her figure had already started to show. The test with 2 lines that appeared 2 months ago had turned her entire world upside down. She could still remember Diego's stunned face when she told him the news. "Are you sure?" he asked then, nervously fiddling with a coffee mug. 2 tests and a blood analysis. "As sure as can be," Valeria replied, watching his reaction. Diego didn't rush to hug her or scream with joy, but he didn't run away either. He just sat there, staring into space, trying to process the information, and then finally said, "Then we'll get married. Mom's been saying it's time." Mom's been saying it. That phrase should have raised a red flag. But Valeria was too thrilled about the idea of a wedding to notice such details. Now, after months of planning, she stood in front of the mirror in her parents' apartment, getting ready for the wedding ceremony. "Valeria, you look beautiful," her mother said as she entered the room holding a bouquet of white roses. "Your father's already nervous in the hallway. He says the registry office won't wait if we're late." They hadn't planned a lavish wedding, just the ceremony, a small reception with close family at a restaurant, and no church wedding, despite Diego's mother insisting on one. Carmen, Diego's mother, had already shown her true colors during the wedding preparations. She interfered with everything, from the choice of dress to the menu at the reception. "Valeria, those bare shoulders on the dress, it's just so vulgar," she said with a sickly sweet smile. "And why such an expensive menu? You could be more modest and save the difference for the future." But the biggest surprise came in the form of a wedding gift from Valeria's parents. A week before the ceremony, her father called her into his study. "Sit down, sweetheart," he said, pulling out a folder of documents. "Your mom and I thought long and hard about what would make you happy on this special day. You're renting an apartment now, and saving for your own would take ages. So we decided to sell Grandma's apartment downtown." Valeria's eyes widened. "But Dad, you were going to rent it out. That's a stable income in." "A stable income doesn't replace family happiness," her father interrupted. "We bought you a house. Out of town, in a nice gated community, 20 minutes from the city. The lot is small but well kept. The house is new and furnished. Just look." He pulled out photos of a 2-story light brick cottage with large windows and a terrace. Inside, a spacious living room, a bedroom, a child's room. Valeria couldn't believe her eyes. "Dad, this is unbelievable. But it must have cost a fortune." "Nothing is too much for my daughter's happiness," he smiled, then turned serious. "Valeria, there's one condition. Your mother and I insist that the house be registered in your name. Now, before the wedding." "But why?" Valeria was surprised. "Diego and I will be a family. What difference does it make?" Her father sighed deeply and looked at her like she was still a little girl. "Sweetheart, life is unpredictable. I don't want to scare you, but anything can happen. If the house is registered before the wedding, it's considered premarital property. In case something goes wrong, no one can lay claim to it." "You don't trust Diego?" Valeria frowned. "I don't trust circumstances," her father replied. "Trust my experience. Do as we ask." At the time, she thought it was excessive caution, but agreed. There was no point in arguing with her father once he'd made up his mind. "What if we just register the house in both our names?" Diego suggested when Valeria told him about the gift and her parents' condition. "That would be fair. Dad insists it should be in my name," she replied. "You don't mind, do you? It doesn't matter if we're living there together anyway." Diego hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, let's do it your way. It's still our home." His reaction was odd, not excitement over such a generous gift, but more like suspicion. Valeria chalked it up to pride. Maybe he felt awkward accepting help from her parents. But everything changed when Diego told his mother the news. The conversation took place in Carmen's one-bedroom apartment on the city outskirts, where she had lived with Diego before he moved in with Valeria. "What house?" His mother choked on her tea. "And your parents insisted be registered to you only?" "Wait, but why a house at all? You could have just lived here, with me. There's enough space for everyone." Valeria glanced around the cramped room with its fold-out sofa and shuddered at the thought of living here as a threesome, and later a foursome when the baby arrived. "Mom, come on," Diego waved her off. "How would we all fit here with a baby?" "People live in worse conditions," Carmen snapped, giving Valeria a sharp look. "So, you're going to be the sole owner of the house?" "Well, that's a twist." "Clever plan." "Carmen, it wasn't my idea," Valeria tried to explain. "It's just that my parents want." "I know exactly what those kinds of parents want," the mother-in-law interrupted. "Putting on airs. So what if they bought a house? What's wrong with the groom? Why all this distrust?" The rest of the evening passed in a tense atmosphere. Carmen kept throwing in snide remarks, and when they finally left, she made a point of kissing her son affectionately and gave Valeria a cold nod. "Don't take it personally," Diego said in the car. "She's just worried about me. She'll get used to it." But Valeria felt that something had cracked in their relationship after that conversation. The house documents were finalized 3 days before the wedding. Valeria received the keys and went with her parents to see the new home. It turned out to be even better than in the photos: bright rooms, new appliances, a small but tidy garden. Her mother immediately began imagining where the baby's crib would go, while her father surveyed the yard, already planning where the barbecue area would be. "Move in right after the wedding," her mother said, putting new dishes into the kitchen cupboards. "Why keep paying rent?" "The lease runs through the end of the month," Valeria replied. "And we'd like to do some minor renovations, buy some furniture." "Renovations?" Her father was surprised. "The house is brand new, everything's fresh." "Diego wants to repaint the bedroom walls and replace some furniture," Valeria shrugged. Her parents exchanged glances but said nothing. Diego had only seen the house twice, once during the initial viewing before the purchase, and again when he came to pick Valeria up after the paperwork was signed. Both times, he was silent and pensive, as if he were evaluating a business asset rather than a future family home. His restrained reaction was concerning, but Valeria dismissed it as pre-wedding nerves. The wedding went off without any major issues, though not without tension. Carmen tried to take control from the bride's mother, especially when it came to seating arrangements and the toast order. Diego's sister, Gabriela, loud, flamboyant, with heavy makeup, spent most of the reception loudly chatting with her friends, casting judgmental glances at Valeria. "Heard you got a house as a gift," she asked Valeria during a smoke break. "What a dream. Meanwhile, we're packed into a 2-bedroom with the kids, and can barely pay the mortgage." "You have 3 kids, right?" Valeria asked politely. 5, Gabriela replied defiantly. 3 from my first husband, 1 from the second, and the youngest from my common-law partner. Though he's on a long business trip right now." She laughed, but the laughter lacked any joy. "Must be tough raising 5 kids alone," Valeria said sympathetically. "Damn right it is," Gabriela nodded. "Diego helps, of course, and Mom too. But it's still crowded. The kids need fresh air, some space." The conversation left a bitter aftertaste. Valeria tried to shake it off but couldn't help feeling that Gabriela was fishing for something. The day after the wedding, the newlyweds went on a short 3-day trip along the coast. They couldn't afford a proper honeymoon, neither time nor money allowed it. When they returned, their first family surprise was waiting. Carmen showed up at their rented apartment with a mountain of boxes. "These are Diego's things," she announced, squeezing through the hallway. "Since you're going to be living in your own house now, it's time to move everything over." No sense letting all this go to waste. Half of the boxes contained old toys, school books, and broken gadgets Diego had never managed to throw away. The other half, kitchen utensils Carmen decided to pass on to the newlyweds. Why do we need a broken coffee maker? Valeria whispered to her husband when his mother went out to get another batch of boxes. Mom means well, he replied. Don't be upset, she's a lonely woman. The lonely woman spent the entire day at their place, ordering everyone around where to put what, while simultaneously prying into the details of the new house. How many bedrooms? 3? And everything's brand new? Even the furniture? Oh, you're lucky, Diego, she kept saying, shooting sideways glances at Valeria. By evening, the small apartment was buried under a pile of junk, and Valeria had a pounding headache from the endless questions and chaos. After seeing her mother-in-law out, she collapsed onto the couch in exhaustion. What are we going to do with all this? The house is already fully furnished. We'll figure it out, Diego waved it off. By the way, Mom offered to help with the move this weekend. She and Gabriella with her husband. They'll see the house at the same time. Husband? Gabriella has a husband now? Valeria asked, remembering the conversation at the wedding. Well, a common law one, Diego mumbled. What's the difference? The important thing is he'll help carry stuff. Valeria sighed. She wanted to quietly settle into their new home, not deal with surprise visits from Diego's relatives. But she said nothing. The first week of marriage wasn't the best time for conflict. She didn't yet know it would also be the last. The next morning, Valeria's parents arrived to help set up the house. Her mom brought new curtains, her dad brought tools for minor repairs. The three of them got to work. While Diego was on duty at the hospital, he worked as a medical resident and often picked up extra shifts. Are you happy, sweetheart? Her father asked as he helped mount some bookshelves in the living room. Valeria hesitated. Was she happy? Pregnant, rushed wedding, tense relationship with her mother-in-law. But she had a loving husband, a child on the way, and a beautiful home. Yes, Dad, she finally replied. Everything's going to be fine. But a gut feeling told her otherwise. Friday morning was overcast. Valeria woke up nauseated. The morning sickness just wouldn't go away. She carefully slipped out of bed, trying not to wake Diego, and headed to the bathroom. When she returned, he was already sitting on the edge of the bed, glued to his phone. Gabriella's calling, he said without looking up. She says she's coming over today to see the house. She and the kids are already getting ready. Today? Valeria felt a knot form in her stomach. But we agreed on tomorrow. Half of our stuff isn't even unpacked, and my parents are supposed to come help with the garden. Diego shrugged, as if the matter was settled. She's already got the kids ready. What am I supposed to say? Don't come? You know how touchy she is. Do I? I've seen your sister twice in my life, the engagement and the wedding. How would I know what she's like? Well, now's your chance to get to know her better. Diego stood and stretched. I'm on call today. I'll be back tomorrow morning. You're the hostess, entertain the guests. The way he said hostess, was there a hint of mockery? Or was she imagining it? By noon, Valeria had managed to tidy up the living room and prepare a light lunch. After all, there were 5 children to feed. She felt anxious. She called her mother to let her know about the upcoming visit from Diego's relatives. Valeria, we'll be there in an hour, her mother said. Your father's just getting ready to plant those fruit trees you picked out. Don't, Mom, Valeria sighed. Gabriella and the kids are dropping by. It'll be awkward. Why awkward? Her mother was surprised. We're coming to help with the yard, just like we agreed. This is your house. We're your parents. What's strange about that? There was no point in arguing. Her mother was, as always, perfectly reasonable, and yet Valeria couldn't shake a sense of unease. Her instincts didn't lie. Gabriella appeared on the doorstep unannounced, dragging a massive bag and 5 children of varying ages. Behind her lumbered a heavy-set man with a crumpled face and a week's worth of stubble. Valeria. Gabriella greeted her with exaggerated cheer. Meet Raul, my partner. And these are the kids, Carlos, Lucia, Andres, Paula, and little Isabel. The children, ranging from a 13-year-old boy to a 3-year-old girl, stormed into the hallway like a loud whirlwind, looking around with unfiltered curiosity. Wow! Raul whistled. This place is clean. Fancy. Straight out of a magazine. Come in, Valeria said with a strained smile. I made lunch, figured you'd be hungry after the trip. Lunch can wait, Gabriella interrupted, marching uninvited into the living room. Show us the palace first. Valeria led the uninvited guests through the house, showing the bright rooms. The children ran around, touched the furniture, peeked into every cabinet. The eldest, Carlos, a sullen teenager with headphones, refused to take off his shoes and left muddy footprints on the light parquet floors. What a gorgeous house! Gabriella whistled, admiring the bedroom. And it's all registered in your name, right? Diego told me. Your parents are very cautious, I'll give them that. There was thinly veiled envy in her voice. Valeria pretended not to notice. Let's have lunch, she offered. I made empanadas and salad. The kids don't eat empanadas, Gabriella snapped. Only quesadillas and churros. Do you have churros? No, but I can. Never mind, we'll order delivery later, Gabriella cut her off, then suddenly gasped. Isabel. What are you doing? The 3-year-old, left unattended, had found Valeria's lipstick and was gleefully drawing all over the light-colored hallway wallpaper. Gabriella lazily took the lipstick away and shrugged. Kids, what can you do? Just little things. Valeria bit her lip, feeling the irritation build inside. Her parents had spent their entire savings on this house, and these people had managed to turn it into a mess in just 30 minutes. When they finally sat down for lunch, Gabriella unexpectedly got to the point. Listen, Valeria, I have something to discuss with you. Diego and I were talking. Our housing situation is just awful. 5 kids in a 2-bedroom, it's hell. And here you've got this big house just sitting here. Sitting here? What do you mean? Valeria frowned. We live here. Oh, come on, Gabriella laughed. 2 people in a house this size? And soon you'll have a baby, you'll need to be closer to the hospital and doctors. Diego and I came up with a great plan. The doorbell rang, interrupting her. Grateful for the break, Valeria rushed to open the door. Her parents stood on the porch with saplings and gardening tools. We'll be done in an hour, her father said cheerfully, kissing her on the cheek. Just need to plant the trees in. He trailed off as he noticed the mess behind her and the unfamiliar people in the living room. You have guests? Yes, that's, Valeria hesitated. My husband's relatives. His sister and her family. Her parents awkwardly greeted Gabriella and her partner. The children continued tearing around the house, and Raul stepped out to smoke on the terrace, leaving dirty dishes behind on the table. We'll work in the yard then, her father said. We won't get in the way. As they stepped outside, Gabriella narrowed her eyes. Parents, huh? Must be well off. Buying houses, setting up gardens. Our mom's working 3 jobs at their age just to stay afloat. My parents worked their whole lives, Valeria replied quietly. They sold my grandmother's apartment to buy this house. Exactly what I mean, Gabriella perked up. So you even had a spare apartment. And we're crammed like sardines. Anyway, here's the deal. Diego suggested a swap. You 2 move into the 1-bedroom with Mom and leave the house to us. It's a win-win, Mom can take care of you during the pregnancy, and the kids will have space. Valeria couldn't believe her ears. Gabriella, is this some kind of joke? Diego and I never discussed any swap. What do you mean? Gabriella looked genuinely surprised. He called me yesterday and said he'd talked to you, that it was all settled. Mom knows too, she's already getting your room ready. Diego said you'd be fine with it. The room seemed to sway before Valeria's eyes. The man she'd been married to for only a week had already decided what to do with their house, not even his house, but a gift from her parents, without saying a word to her. I need to talk to Diego, she murmured. What's there to talk about? Gabriella waved her hand. It's all decided. You get how badly we need this house, right? 5 kids, Valeria. You only have one, and it's not even born yet. Besides, the kids already love this place. Isn't that right, kids? The 3 youngest children, hearing their names, nodded clumsily, not really understanding what the adults were talking about. At that moment, Valeria's father came out onto the terrace, wiping his hands on his gardening gloves. Valeria, we'll need a sturdier shovel. You've gotta. He fell silent when he saw his daughter's pale face. What happened? Nothing, Uncle, Gabriella replied breezily. Just discussing family matters. Diego and I decided to swap homes. He and Valeria will move into Mom's 1-bedroom. It'll be more convenient with the baby, and the kids need space and fresh air. Valeria's father slowly removed his gloves. Excuse me for stepping in, but what swap are we talking about? This house belongs to Valeria. It's her property. It's not something that can be bartered. What do you mean it can't? Gabriella said indignantly. They're family. What's mine is yours, right? Valeria wouldn't mind helping her husband's family. Valeria, her father turned to her. What's going on? I don't know, she answered quietly, feeling a lump rise in her throat. Gabriella says Diego promised him the house and that we're supposed to move in with his mother. An awkward silence followed. Gabriella looked between Valeria and her father, clearly not expecting such a reaction. Well then, her father said finally, his voice cold as ice. I think you should leave. Now. Valeria needs to discuss this with her husband, not with you. Are you kicking me out? Gabriella cried. Out of my brother's house? Out of my daughter's house, he said firmly, which legally and officially belongs to her. And if necessary, I'll call the police to confirm it. The air thickened with tension. Gabriella narrowed her eyes, her mouth twisting. Oh, I see. Using your money and connections to push people around? Think just because you bought a little house, you can humiliate ordinary folks. You have an apartment, he cut her off. Now please, leave. Come on, kids, Gabriella hissed through clenched teeth. We're not welcome here. Roll. We're leaving. She began packing their things, loudly commenting on every move. Can you believe this? Throwing a mother of 5 out onto the street. Is that normal? And they call themselves family. Diego will deal with you. Deal with what? Valeria's mother appeared in the doorway, holding garden shears. What exactly will he deal with in my daughter's own house? Gabriella faltered, but then raised her voice even louder. Just so you know, Diego and I already made a decision. He said the house would be ours. I even found a school nearby for the kids. We were going to move in tomorrow. Valeria's parents exchanged glances. Her father took out his phone. I'm calling the police. This is starting to look like attempted property seizure. No police, Valeria stepped in, her whole body trembling. Gabriella is going to leave now. Right, Gabriella? But her sister-in-law wasn't backing down. Straightening up, she stepped toward Valeria, towering menacingly. You'll regret this, got it? Diego will leave you. He's always chosen his family over some random girl who got herself knocked up. Valeria flinched as if slapped. Enough, her father roared. Out of my daughter's house. Now. He turned and threw the front door open. Leave. Immediately. Gabriella slowly gathered the children, casting scathing looks around the room. "You'll regret this," she muttered as she crossed the threshold. "Diego will make sure of it. And so will our mother. We don't abandon our own." When the door finally closed behind them, Valeria collapsed onto the couch, shaking. "What was that?" her mother asked softly, sitting beside her and wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Valeria, did you know about this plan?" "No," she shook her head. "Diego never said anything." "I can't believe this." She took out her phone and called her husband. He didn't answer. After the fifth attempt, a message came through. "In surgery. We'll be free tonight." "Valeria," her father said, sitting across from her and looking her straight in the eyes. "You need to think this through. If your husband really promised his sister your house, that's serious." "It must be some kind of mistake," Valeria whispered. "Diego couldn't have promised that. He knows the house is a gift from you." But there was no certainty in her voice. The memory of Diego's strange reaction when he learned about the house, his reluctance to put both names on the documents, and those looks he exchanged with his mother, they were all too fresh. "Let's wait for his explanation," her mother said gently. "In the meantime, we'll stay with you, just in case." That phrase hung in the air. Just in case of what? Gabriella returning with reinforcements? A scandal with her husband? Valeria didn't know what was worse. Diego came home earlier than expected, around 7 in the evening. When he walked in and saw Valeria's parents, his face twisted. "What's going on here?" "Gabriella called me in tears. She says you threw her and the kids out." "Sit down, Diego," Valeria's father said calmly. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," Diego snapped. "You insulted my sister. She's a single mother with 5 kids, and you." "She has a common-law husband," Valeria cut in. "With a bruised face and reeking of booze. He was here too." "Roll?" Diego waved a hand dismissively. "He doesn't count. He's here today, gone tomorrow. Gabriella's raising those kids alone." "That's not the point," Valeria stood, looking him in the eyes. "You promised her our house. Said we'd move in with your mother." Diego hesitated, but quickly composed himself. "I was discussing the possibility, theoretically. Just think about it, 5 kids crammed into a tiny apartment, while we live in a mansion. It's not fair." "Not fair?" Valeria felt fury rising inside her. "My parents sold an apartment to buy us this house. They worked their entire lives. And your sister goes through men like tissues and keeps having children she can't afford to feed. Don't you dare talk about my family like that." Diego shouted, and Valeria flinched. She had never seen him like this. "I've always helped Gabriella, and I always will. She's my sister." "Help her all you want, on your own dime," Valeria's father interjected. "But not at our daughter's expense." Diego turned his glare to his father-in-law. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? You deliberately put the house in Valeria's name. You knew this would happen. I bet you even looked into my family, did your research?" "No," her father shook his head. "We just wanted to protect our daughter. And clearly, we were right to." A heavy silence followed. Valeria looked at her husband and didn't recognize him, the hostile stare, the tight lips, the rigid stance. This man had been ready to give away her house, a gift from her parents, without even asking her. "Diego," she said softly, "tell me the truth. Did you marry me because I was pregnant, or because you thought you'd get a house?" "What nonsense is that?" He let out a nervous chuckle. "We love each other. But family is sacred. We're supposed to help one another. You should think of Gabriella as a sister now, too." "A sister?" Valeria let out a bitter laugh. "She called me a knocked-up stray. Is that what sisterhood looks like?" Diego blinked in confusion. "She was just emotional. Look, we can talk it all through. Mom suggested we live with her for now. Just temporarily, until we save up. Live with your mom? In her one-bedroom apartment? The three of us, soon four, with a baby? You think my mom isn't good enough to live with you? Diego flared up. Too simple for aristocrats like you? It's not about that, Valeria said tiredly. It's about the fact that you made a decision for both of us. Without even asking. You and your sister already decided everything, even picked out a school for her kids. She exaggerated. No, Diego. Gabriella said you were planning to move in tomorrow. Is that true? His silence said more than any words. My God, Valeria whispered. It's true. You really were going to do it. Just spring it on me. We would have convinced you, Diego said quietly. You would have understood. On paper, the house would still be yours. We'd just swap. Temporarily. Temporarily. Valeria shook her head. Diego, do you honestly believe your sister, with 5 kids, once she moves into this house, will ever move out? Diego remained silent, avoiding her gaze. I think it's time we go, Valeria's mother said, standing up. You two need to talk privately. No, Valeria grabbed her mother's hand. Stay. Please. Her voice trembled, and something in that tremble made her parents exchange a look and sit back down. Diego paced the room nervously, avoiding eye contact with his wife and father-in-law. This won't do, he said finally. We need to find a compromise. Valeria, let's just think this through. Gabriella has 5 kids. We'll have 1. She has no support, you have wealthy parents. Stop, Valeria cut him off. Stop comparing and guilt-tripping. Your sister acted like a squatter today. She already considered this house hers. Did she call again? Diego suddenly asked, alert. Did she come back? No, Valeria frowned. Should she have? Diego hesitated, and a cold wave swept through Valeria. Oh my God. You really did plan to just take the house? Like that? Spring it on me? Don't be ridiculous, Diego snapped. No one was taking anything. It was just a temporary swap. For the kids. For the kids, Valeria echoed. Then, as if waking from a trance, she straightened and looked at her husband firmly. I'm not giving up this house. Not now, not ever. It was a gift from my parents, and our child will grow up here. If your sister and her problems mean more to you than your own wife and unborn child, then you should leave. You're giving me an ultimatum? Diego raised an eyebrow in disbelief. I'm asking you to choose. Us, your new family, or them. For a long moment, Diego was silent, glaring at her. Then his shoulders sagged. You know, they're still my blood. I can't abandon them. Especially when my wife has this amazing house, and my sister is suffering with 5 kids. Those words, spoken so calmly, hit Valeria harder than any scream. That's it then, she said quietly. You've made your choice. Valeria, Diego stepped toward her, don't be so dramatic. I'm just offering a practical solution. We're young, we can handle a bit of crowding, and help the kids in the meantime. No, Diego, Valeria shook her head. This stopped being about the kids a long time ago. You chose between me and your sister. And you didn't choose me. She slowly walked to the door and opened it. Pack your things. You're no longer welcome here. Diego stared at her in disbelief. You're kicking me out? Over a house? Seriously? Not over the house, Valeria replied calmly. Over betrayal. You made decisions about my property behind my back. Promised it to your sister. Planned to move without telling me. What would you call that if not betrayal? It's called caring for your family. Diego shouted. You're selfish. Pregnant with your first child and already so greedy. Greedy? Valeria laughed bitterly. In 1 week of marriage, you were ready to give away a house, a gift from my parents, to your sister with a questionable lifestyle. Who's the selfish one here? Don't you dare speak about Gabriella like that. Out. Valeria said quietly but firmly. Now. Diego stared her down, then glanced at her parents, as if expecting support. But they remained silent, unmoving. Fine, he spat. I'll go. But you'll regret this. Without me, you're nothing. Just a knocked-up girl lucky enough to have rich parents. The door slammed behind him so hard the windows rattled. Valeria stood staring at it, something breaking inside her. She didn't cry, a strange numbness had gripped her body and mind. Why didn't she feel pain? Her marriage had just collapsed, and the man she thought she loved had revealed his true face. Sweetheart, her mother gently touched her shoulder. Come, sit. Valeria moved mechanically to the couch, sank onto it, and only then realized her knees were shaking. Something inside her had changed over the past few hours, as if an invisible line had been crossed, and there was no way back. Water, her mother offered, but Valeria just shook her head. I think we should stay with you, her father said firmly. Just in case. Why? Valeria finally looked up. Do you think he'll come back? With backup, his sister and her so-called husband? I don't know, her father replied honestly. But after a scene like that, I'll feel better staying close. At that moment, Valeria's phone buzzed with a new message. Then another. And another. She glanced at the screen, a dozen messages from her mother-in-law. With a growing chill in her chest, Valeria opened the first one. How dare you throw my son out of your house after everything he's done for you? The second was worse. That baby probably isn't even his. How else can you explain your behavior? You don't care about his family at all. The third message was pure insults. In the fourth, Carmen threatened to sue for the house, claiming Diego had rights to part of the property as her husband. My mom's calling, Valeria's father said, glancing at his own phone. That's odd, she rarely calls me. He answered, and Valeria watched his expression harden with each passing second. No. That's unacceptable. I won't allow you to speak like that, he said sharply. And if you show up at my daughter's house, I'll call the police. That's not a threat. Goodbye. He hung up and turned to Valeria and her mother. It was Carmen, he said. She was extremely aggressive. Demanded we talk sense into Valeria. According to her, the entire family is on their way here to resolve things. They've lost their minds, Valeria's mother gasped. They're seriously planning to just show up here and, what? Take the house by force? I don't know, her father said, rubbing his face. But the level of hostility suggests the worst. I'm calling the police. No, Valeria said suddenly, rising to her feet. I'll leave. I'll spend the night at your place. No one will be here. They'll calm down. No, her father said firmly. You're not leaving your home because of them. If they show up, they'll explain themselves to the police. There was such determination in his voice that Valeria didn't argue. The doorbell rang 20 minutes later. In that time, her father had already called the police and warned them about a potential conflict. I'll get it, he said, walking toward the door. You stay here. At the door stood Diego, his mother Carmen, and his sister Gabriela. Gabriela looked ready for battle, her face contorted with rage, eyes burning with resolve. Where's my daughter-in-law? Carmen demanded immediately. I need to speak with her. No, Valeria's father replied calmly. You will not speak to anyone in this house in that tone. We have every right. Gabriela cut in. This is a family matter. Your daughter threw her husband out of their shared home. This house belongs to Valeria, her father said firmly. And I've called the police. They'll be here any minute. If you're here to start trouble, you'll explain yourselves to them. At the mention of the police, Carmen paled slightly, but quickly regained her composure. You think we're afraid? We demand justice. Our son married your daughter. She paused, carefully choosing her words, because she got pregnant. And now she's throwing him out of the house they both own. Mom, calm down, Diego suddenly interjected. I just want to get my things. And talk to Valeria. There will be no talk, Valeria's father said coldly. Valeria doesn't want to speak to you. She's my wife, whom you were willing to evict into your mother's one-bedroom apartment to give this house to your sister, he replied icily. You can collect your things in the presence of the police. You're twisting everything, Gabriella shouted. We just wanted to swap homes temporarily. For the children. And you. She was cut off by the sound of a car pulling up. Two police officers, a young man and a middle-aged woman, approached the gate. Good evening, the female officer said. We received a call about a possible domestic conflict. What's going on here? Here's what, Carmen jumped in. That girl, she pointed somewhere behind Valeria's father, kicked my son out of their shared home. And her parents won't let them talk or resolve things peacefully. The officers exchanged glances. Who owns the house? The female officer asked. I do, Valeria stepped forward, feeling her heart pounding. It's my property. Acquired before marriage. I can show the documents. And you kicked your husband out? The young male officer clarified. Yes, Valeria replied firmly. After I found out he promised my house to his sister behind my back. And planned for us to move into his mother's one-bedroom apartment. Lies, Gabriella shouted. Diego just wanted to help. I have 5 children. Quiet, the female officer said sternly. Here's the deal, if the house belongs to Citizen, she looked at Valeria inquiringly. Martinez. Valeria Martinez. If the house belongs to Citizen Martinez, she has the right to decide who may or may not be here. We can escort your husband to collect his belongings, if you're okay with that. I am, Valeria nodded. But only him. No one else. Carmen and Gabriella were left outside with the young officer, while the female officer entered the house with Diego. Valeria stood in the hallway, arms crossed, watching as her husband packed his things in the bedroom. So you're serious? He asked quietly, stuffing clothes into a duffel bag. It ends like this? What did you think? Valeria met his gaze. That I'd agree to live in a cramped flat with your mom while your sister moves into my house with yet another sketchy man? Don't twist it, Diego snapped. Raul's a decent guy. He's just out of work right now. Like the previous 4 husbands of your sister, Valeria said bitterly. Doesn't matter. You made your choice. I chose family. Diego zipped the bag and turned to her. My family. The one that's always been there for me. And you? You're just. Just what, Diego? Valeria asked softly. Who am I? A knocked-up girl, like your sister called me? Or a spoiled brat, like your mother thinks? You could have understood, he muttered stubbornly. Gabriella's struggling with 5 kids. And you have rich parents. My parents aren't rich, Valeria replied tiredly. They worked their whole lives. And they chose to spend their savings on their daughter, not booze, like your sister. Don't you dare, Diego growled, stepping toward her, then stopped as the officer beside him visibly tensed. Don't you dare talk about my family like that. Your family tried to take my house, Valeria replied coldly. And they'll always come first for you. I see that now. Go. We have nothing more to say. What about the baby? Diego asked suddenly. You're pregnant. My baby, Valeria said. What's your point? She felt nausea rise in her throat, from nerves, or another wave of morning sickness, she couldn't tell. I'll raise this child. Alone. Without your family anywhere near. I'm the father, Diego said stubbornly. I have rights. Of course, Valeria nodded. And responsibilities. Once the baby is born, you can file for paternity and start paying child support. But for now, leave. Diego stared at her for a few seconds, as if waiting for her to change her mind. Then, without a word, he picked up his bag and left the room. The officer followed close behind. When the front door closed behind them, Valeria slowly sank onto the bed. Her hands were trembling. Inside, she felt empty, no tears, no screaming, no hysteria. Just exhaustion and a strange, almost frightening relief. Valeria, her mother peeked into the room. "How are you feeling?" "Me? I don't know," she answered honestly. "Just hollow. And nauseous." "It'll pass." Her mother sat down next to her and took her hand. "Trust me, sweetheart. It'll pass. You did the right thing." Outside, loud voices rang out. Valeria walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. Diego was animatedly gesturing, yelling something at his mother and sister. Carmen looked outraged, Gabriella, furious. The police officers stood nearby, ready to intervene. "They won't stop," Valeria said quietly. "This is just the beginning. Then we'll be ready," her father said firmly, appearing in the doorway. "First thing tomorrow, you'll file for divorce." "But I've only been married a week," Valeria said in confusion. "All the better," her father nodded. "No shared property. No complications. And if it ends quickly, all the better. No need to prolong the agony." Valeria nodded. He was right, the sooner this farce ended, the better. She stood by the window until the police car drove away, followed by Diego, his mother, and his sister in Carmen's old car. Only then did she allow herself to exhale. "I'll stay with you," her mother said firmly. "Your father will bring my things. Don't argue." Valeria didn't. Her mother's presence now felt like a lifeline. She felt lost, as if the ground had fallen out from under her. That morning, she had still been a happy young wife expecting a child. And now she stood on the brink of divorce, alone, carrying a baby, with shattered illusions. "It'll be okay," her mother repeated, tucking her into bed. "You'll see, sweetheart. You're strong. You'll get through this." But that night, Valeria barely slept. She lay staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how she hadn't seen it all sooner. Diego had always been a mama's boy, she used to think it was endearing. He had always helped his sister, what was wrong with that? But now she saw what lay behind it, a readiness to sacrifice his own family for the whims of his mother and sister. In the morning, her phone buzzed again with a new barrage of messages, from her mother-in-law, Diego, even Gabriella. Valeria deleted them all without reading and blocked their numbers. "That's enough. I've had enough of this circus. I'm filing for divorce," she told her mother over breakfast. Today. She managed to file the divorce papers that very day. To her surprise, the process was relatively simple: no shared assets, a marriage of less than a month, no property disputes. Even the pregnancy didn't complicate matters. The clerk at the municipal office looked at her with sympathy. "The divorce will be finalized in a month. Both of you will need to appear. And if he doesn't? After 3 months, it'll be finalized unilaterally," the woman shrugged. "But usually, they come. Especially the husbands." In the hallway of the municipal office, Valeria got an unpleasant surprise: Diego, pacing nervously from wall to wall. "Valeria," he rushed toward her. "I knew you'd come. We need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about," she said coldly, stepping back. "I filed for divorce. The hearing's in a month. I hope to see you there." "Valeria, this is crazy." Diego lowered his voice when he noticed the receptionist watching. "We're expecting a baby. We love each other. This is all. A misunderstanding? A misunderstanding?" Valeria let out a bitter laugh. "Like you promising my house to your sister? Planning to move me into your mother's apartment? Or maybe your mother and sister calling me a knocked-up nobody. They were emotional. Diego tried to take her hand, but she pulled away. Gabriella overreacted, sure. She wouldn't really have taken the house. It was just temporary. She's struggling with the kids. Your sister is not my problem, Valeria snapped. She's a grown woman. Let her solve her problems without my house. What about me? Diego looked at her, almost desperate. You're really just cutting me out of your life? Out of our child's life? You made your choice, Valeria replied softly. When you put your sister's needs above your wife and unborn child. It's that simple. She's my sister, Diego insisted. Blood is thicker than water. And you? You should understand who family is. I was your family, Valeria interrupted. Not anymore. Goodbye. She turned and walked toward the exit. Diego called her name, but she didn't look back. Even when she heard him running after her. Only when his hand grabbed her arm did she stop abruptly. Let go, she hissed through her teeth. Or I'll scream. Valeria, I'm begging you. Diego looked genuinely pitiful. Let's start over. I was wrong. Let's forget this whole mess with the house. I can't forget it, Valeria shook her head. I saw who you really are. Who your family really is. Do you honestly think I can ever trust you again after this? I'll cut ties with them, Diego said urgently. If that's what you want. We'll move to another city. Start fresh. Valeria looked at him carefully. Did he even believe what he was saying? She didn't. I don't believe you, she said calmly. You'll never cut them off. And you shouldn't, they're your family. I just don't want to be part of it anymore. She gently freed her arm and stepped outside. Her mother was waiting in the car. Everything okay? She asked, noticing her daughter's pale face. Yes, Valeria nodded. It's settled. Divorce in a month. Her mother didn't ask anything else, just started the engine and pulled onto the road. Valeria leaned back in the seat and closed her eyes. She felt a strange lightness, as if she had cut through a Gordian knot and freed herself from something that had been dragging her down. The following weeks passed in a strange daze. Valeria focused on setting up the house, attending her doctor's appointments, and working remotely. She was a graphic designer, but everything felt foggy. She blocked all calls and messages from Diego and his family without reading them. One day, Carmen came to the house, banged on the door for a long time, rang the bell, but Valeria didn't open. Neighbors called the community security, and the mother-in-law was escorted away, loudly protesting the injustice. Her father hired a lawyer, even though the case seemed straightforward. After all, the house was purchased before the marriage, no shared purchases had been made, and the marriage lasted less than a month. Better safe than sorry, her father explained. Knowing his family, they'll try anything. And they did. A week before the divorce hearing, Valeria's lawyer called her. I have news, he said. Not the nicest. Your husband has filed a counterclaim. He's claiming he contributed financially to the house's renovation, furniture, and appliances, and now demands compensation. What? Valeria couldn't believe her ears. That's a lie. He didn't contribute a single cent. The house came fully furnished and equipped. My parents handled everything. That's what I thought, the lawyer replied calmly. Do you have receipts? Proof that the house was purchased furnished? Documentation of the items? Fortunately, Valeria's father, meticulous when it came to finances, had kept everything, not just a deed to the house, but invoices for every item of furniture, every lamp, every pot. Everything had been purchased before the wedding, paid for by his card or in cash with receipts. Perfect, the lawyer said with satisfaction. We're covered on that front. But prepare for an unpleasant hearing. The divorce hearing took place in a tense atmosphere. Diego arrived with his mother and a lawyer, a tall, thin man with a piercing gaze. Valeria expected a scene, but it turned out worse: cold, calculated accusations. My client, Valeria's lawyer began, is filing for divorce due to irreconcilable differences. The marriage lasted only 3 weeks. There are no joint assets. I must disagree, Diego's lawyer jumped in. My client made significant contributions to the furnishing of the house, which his wife now controls exclusively. We are requesting compensation in the amount of... Excuse me, Valeria's lawyer interrupted. We have a complete set of documents proving the house was purchased before the marriage, fully furnished and equipped. Here are the receipts, purchase contracts, all dated prior to the wedding. Diego's lawyer hesitated but quickly recovered. Nevertheless, my client participated in planning the layout and choosing finishes. That has no legal bearing, Valeria's lawyer countered. Without financial contributions, documented and verifiable, there can be no claim for compensation. The judge carefully reviewed the documents and nodded. It is clear the property is premarital and solely owned by Ms. Martinez. Let's proceed to the divorce itself. Diego sat stone-faced, avoiding Valeria's gaze. Carmen, on the other hand, glared at her with open hatred. The divorce was finalized in 20 minutes. No disputes, no division of property. The judge issued the ruling, and Valeria felt a strange sense of relief wash over her, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her soul. As she exited the courtroom, she ran into Diego in the corridor. "Well, congratulations," he muttered. "You got what you wanted. You're free now." "We both are," Valeria replied calmly. "And that's for the best. What about the baby?" Diego lowered his voice. "It's mine. I want to be part of their life. Once the baby's born, you can file for paternity," Valeria shrugged. "Then you'll have all the rights and responsibilities of a father." Diego smirked. "So you're counting on child support, huh?" "I'm not expecting anything," Valeria replied wearily. "I wasn't the one who filed a claim for contributions to the house, that was you." "It was my lawyer's idea," Diego mumbled, avoiding her gaze. "And my mom's." "Of course," Valeria nodded. "It's always someone else's fault. Never yours." Diego flinched, as if struck, but said nothing. Just then, Carmen approached, fuming with indignation. "Well, are you happy now? You stole the house and now you're dumping my son." Valeria stood by the window of the hospital room, gently stroking her noticeably rounded belly. 7 months pregnant, soon, she would be a mother. Outside, a tropical rain blanketed the hospital courtyard in a wet haze. Her doctor had admitted her for monitoring after detecting elevated blood pressure at her last appointment. "Nothing serious," he'd said, "but it's better to be cautious." 3 months had passed since the divorce. 3 months of a new, unfamiliar life, without Diego, without plans for a shared future, but with the steady support of her parents and the understanding that she now had to handle everything alone. Still, Valeria didn't feel unhappy. More like free. As if she had taken off a heavy backpack she didn't even realize she was carrying. Her phone vibrated softly. Another message from Diego. Since the divorce, he hadn't stopped trying to win her back, calling to apologize, sending flowers, writing long texts about how much he'd changed. But Valeria remained firm. Trust, once broken, couldn't be restored. "How are you? How's our baby? I heard you're in the hospital. Can I bring you anything?" Valeria sighed. Diego must have heard about her hospitalization from mutual acquaintances. She didn't reply. Their communication was now limited strictly to matters concerning the baby, and even that, only when necessary. A soft knock at the door. "Valeria, you have visitors," the nurse peeked in. "Your parents?" "Yes, let them in," Valeria smiled. Her mother entered with a large bag of homemade food, her father with an armful of books. As she hugged them, Valeria silently thanked the universe once again for their unwavering support. Without them, she wouldn't have made it through the pregnancy, the divorce, or the relentless harassment from her ex-husband's family. "How are you, sweetheart?" her mother asked, placing containers of food on the bedside table. "Your blood pressure?" "Back to normal," Valeria replied. "The doctor says I'll be discharged in a couple of days." "Great," her father nodded. "But we've got some news. And I'm afraid it's not great." Valeria tensed. "What happened?" "Your ex-husband filed a petition to establish visitation rights with the unborn child," her father said calmly, though the tension in his jaw was visible. "His lawyer contacted ours." "What?" Valeria sank down onto the bed. "But the baby hasn't even been born yet." "What visitation?" "That's exactly what our lawyer said," her mother nodded. "It's just pressure. An attempt to rattle you." "So what now?" "Nothing," her father said firmly. "There's no legal ground for his request. But be prepared, once the baby's born, they'll come at you again." Valeria closed her eyes. Over the past few months, her ex's family had not let up. First it was calls and threats from Carmen, then bizarre visits from Gabriella, who would one day cry on the doorstep begging for reconciliation for the kids, and the next threatened to deal with the arrogant little witch. Once, she even showed up with all 5 children and staged a scene at the gates until security called the police. "They're not going to stop, are they?" Valeria asked quietly. "They'll stop," her father said with quiet conviction. "Once they realize they won't get anything. The key is not to let them provoke you." After her parents left, Valeria sat by the window for a long time, watching the rain. Strangely, she felt no anger or pain, just exhaustion and quiet disappointment. She thought about the future, about her child, about what his life would be like, knowing his father had already chosen to walk away before he was even born. "A boy," the doctor announced, lifting a tiny, vernix-covered body above the screen. "Big, healthy baby." Labor had been quick, just 4 hours of contractions, and now her son was here, announcing himself to the world with a sharp, powerful cry. Valeria smiled through her tears as the nurse wrapped the baby in a blanket and laid him on her chest. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I'm your mom." Tiny fingers curled around hers, as if in response. In that moment, Valeria understood, for this little human, she was ready to endure anything. A few hours later, after she was transferred to the postpartum ward and her son was taken to the nursery for examination, loud voices echoed in the corridor. "I'm the father. I have the right to see my son." Diego's voice. Valeria tensed. How did he find out about the birth so quickly? Someone from the staff must have told him, maybe the intake nurse who had asked for the father's contact information. "Please calm down," the nurse answered gently but firmly. "The patient has just given birth. She needs rest. Visits are only permitted with her consent." "I'm the father of the child," Diego repeated stubbornly. "He's my son. I want to see him." "Paternity has not been legally established," an unfamiliar male voice cut in. "You currently have no legal visitation rights without the mother's permission." Pause. Then Diego's voice again, quieter now. "All right. I'll wait. But please tell her I'm here. I want to see my son." Valeria sank back into her pillow, every muscle tense. She had known this moment would come, just not so soon. Diego had always said he wanted children, especially a son. Now he had legal grounds to demand access. The door opened quietly, and a nurse stepped in. "Valeria, the child's father is asking for permission to visit you and the baby." "No," Valeria said firmly. "I don't want to see anyone right now. He's insisting." "I said no," Valeria replied softly, but with steel in her voice. "I just gave birth. I need peace. If he keeps insisting, call security." The nurse nodded and left. Voices murmured outside the door, followed by footsteps fading down the hallway. Valeria exhaled. The battle was postponed, but not canceled. "He's beautiful," her mother said, leaning over the crib where newborn Matteo slept. "Looks just like you did as a baby, only with more hair." Valeria smiled. She and her son had been home for a week, and every day brought something new. Matteo turned out to be an unusually calm baby, fed well, slept long hours, rarely fussed. The only cloud hanging over their quiet joy was Diego's persistent attempts to see the baby. "Did Diego call?" her mother asked, noticing Valeria reaching for her phone. "Every day," Valeria sighed. "Today he messaged me that he's filed for paternity." "Well, that was expected," her mother nodded. "The lawyer warned us. Don't stress about it. It's a long process." "I'm not stressed," Valeria said, adjusting the blanket in the crib. I don't want Matteo anywhere near that family. Can you imagine the kind of influence Gabriella and Carmen would have on him?" Unfortunately, her mother sighed, once paternity is established, Diego will have legal visitation rights. "But you can request that visits happen only at your home, under your supervision, at least while the baby's still little." Valeria nodded. They had already discussed this with the lawyer. Father's rights were a reality she would have to accept, but she would do everything in her power to protect her son from negative influences. A knock on the door interrupted their conversation. Valeria flinched. She wasn't expecting anyone. "I'll get it," her mother said, heading to the hallway. A few seconds later, raised voices reached Valeria's ears. She carefully laid Matteo down, he had just begun to stir, and went to the door. In the hallway stood Diego and Carmen. Her mother-in-law's face was twisted with fury. Diego looked determined, but also slightly embarrassed. "I have the right to see my grandson," Carmen declared, stepping toward Valeria. "You can't deprive a child of his grandmother." "You're not his grandmother until paternity is established," Valeria's mother said coldly, blocking the doorway. "And even after that, you'll have no legal visitation rights." "Valeria," Diego stepped forward. "I just want to see my son. He's my child." "Allegedly your child," Valeria corrected him. "Until a DNA test is done and paternity is legally established." "You're saying you doubt he's mine?" Diego looked hurt. "I don't doubt anything," Valeria said, exhausted. "But the law is the law. You filed for paternity, now wait for the result." "What kind of circus is this?" Carmen cut in. "My son is the father of this child, and we have every moral right to see him. You're just taking revenge because we didn't let you destroy our family." "Mom, calm down," Diego cut her off, then turned back to Valeria. "Listen, I understand you're angry. But this is our child. I want to be part of his life. You could have been part of his life if you hadn't betrayed me and tried to take our home away in the first week of marriage," Valeria replied quietly. "Now everything will go through the law. Wait for the paternity test results and the court decision." "You," Carmen began, but Valeria interrupted. "If you don't leave immediately, I'll call the police for trespassing. And by the way, I'll record this conversation as evidence of harassment and pressure for court use." Carmen turned pale but didn't move. Diego took her by the elbow. "Let's go, Mom. We'll deal with this in court." When the door closed behind the unwelcome guests, Valeria leaned wearily against the wall. "They won't leave us alone," she whispered. "They will," her mother said firmly. "Once they understand they can't intimidate you. Stay strong, sweetheart. You're tough." Summer was hot. Valeria sat on the porch of her house, watching as 5-month-old Matteo explored a colorful play mat with great enthusiasm. He was growing up healthy and active, delighting his mother, grandmother, and grandfather with new achievements every day. The paternity hearing had taken place a month earlier. DNA results confirmed what was already obvious: Diego was the biological father. Now he was obligated to pay child support and, more frustratingly for Valeria, had been granted visitation rights. Still, Valeria managed to negotiate a crucial condition: until the child turned 3, visits could only take place in her home, in her presence, and no more than twice a week for 2 hours at a time. No overnight stays, no unsupervised outings, and no visits from Carmen or any of Diego's other relatives. The doorbell rang, Diego, punctual as ever. "Hi," Valeria said, opening the gate. "Come on in." The tension between them had somewhat eased. Diego had turned out to be a fairly attentive father, always arriving with toys or books, asking about Matteo's health and development, even offering financial help beyond the court-ordered support. Valeria declined. She was earning well from remote work, and her parents were always ready to lend a hand. Diego stepped onto the porch and immediately knelt beside his son. "Hey, champ. How are you? Look what I brought you." He pulled a bright toy car from his bag, and Matteo instantly reached for it with a toothless smile. Valeria watched them with mixed feelings. On the one hand, it was nice to see her son wouldn't grow up without a father. On the other, she still couldn't fully forgive Diego for his betrayal. "How's work?" she asked, maintaining polite conversation. "Good," Diego replied, not looking up from the game. "They offered me a position as branch manager. I'll have to work more, though." "Congratulations," Valeria said sincerely. "You always aimed for that." Diego looked up at her. "Thanks. And your work?" "Going well," she shrugged. "Took on a big new project, designing a brand identity for a cafe chain." They fell silent. Talking about work and the weather, that was all that remained between them. No personal topics, no questions about Diego's family or Valeria's future plans. Only their son connected them now, and it was a strange, fragile bond. "Valeria," Diego said suddenly, breaking away from play. "I wanted to talk." She tensed. "About what?" "About us," Diego hesitated. "I've been thinking. A lot. About everything that happened. I was wrong." "Let's not," Valeria shook her head. "Everything's already been decided." "But Matteo," Diego glanced at their son. "He needs a complete family. A mother and a father." "He has both," Valeria answered calmly. "They just don't live together." "But we could try again," Diego persisted. "For him. I've changed." Valeria looked at her ex-husband for a long time. Maybe he really had changed. Maybe he had realized his mistakes. But something inside her whispered, people tend to repeat the same mistakes. "No, Diego," she said firmly. "I can't. Too much has been said and done. I won't be able to trust you again." "Because of the house?" Diego gave a bitter smile. "Because of one stupid fight?" "Not because of the house," Valeria shook her head. "Because you revealed your true priorities. And I wasn't one of them. Neither was our future child." "That's not fair," Diego objected. "I was confused. Gabriella pressured me, my mom." "Exactly," Valeria cut him off. "Your family will always pressure you. And you'll always give in. Nothing has changed." "I barely talk to them now," Diego said quietly. "After that incident, Gabriella said a lot of nasty things when I refused to keep fighting over the house. My mom too. We're not as close anymore." Valeria raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Really?" "Yeah," Diego shrugged. "They can't forgive me for choosing you and the baby over them." "But you didn't choose me," Valeria noted. "You chose them. That's why we divorced." "Back then, yes," Diego nodded. "But later, when I found out about my son, everything changed. I realized the house is just walls. Family is the people you care about." Valeria was silent, unsure of what to say. Had Diego really changed? Or was this just another manipulation, an attempt to regain access to the house? As if reading her mind, Diego continued. "I'm not after your house, if that's what you're thinking. I bought an apartment. 2 bedrooms, not far from here. I thought when Matteo gets older, it would be convenient for him to spend time there." "That's good," Valeria replied, unsure. "Just think about it," Diego said gently. "For Matteo's sake. Maybe we could at least try." Start with friendship. Valeria looked at her son, who was deeply focused on a new toy, and shook her head. No, Diego. I'm not ready. Maybe I never will be. Let's just be co-parents. He looked disappointed, but nodded. Okay. I understand. But if you ever change your mind, I'll know where to find you. Valeria gave a faint smile. The rest of the visit passed in tense silence. When Diego was leaving, he lingered by the gate. You know, Gabriela divorced her latest husband. She's looking for someone else to latch onto again. My mom offered to take her in, but I refused to help. For the first time in my life. Valeria didn't reply, but deep down, she felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Maybe Diego really had started to change. It was just a pity it had come too late. On a sunny May afternoon, Matteo took his first wobbly steps across the neatly trimmed lawn. Valeria sat on the porch, watching him, unable to hold back her smile. A year had passed since the divorce, and life had finally settled. Diego's role in their lives had become clear. He was a caring but distant father. He came to visit his son, paid child support, even helped occasionally with practical matters. His relationship with Valeria remained politely distant, with no hint of rekindled romance. Carmen and Gabriela had almost entirely disappeared from their lives. Only occasionally did Valeria hear updates from Diego. Gabriela had found yet another husband, moved to another city with the 3 youngest children, and left the older ones with their grandmother. Sometimes, Valeria wondered what would have happened if she had agreed to that temporary house swap. Most likely, she and her son would now be crammed in her mother-in-law's 1-bedroom apartment under constant scrutiny, while Gabriela would have taken root in the house, with no intention of ever leaving. Matteo took a few unsure steps and tumbled onto the soft grass, bursting into happy laughter. Valeria went over and scooped him into her arms, spinning him gently in the air. My clever boy. Soon you'll be faster than the wind. The baby laughed, grabbing at her hair, and in that moment, Valeria knew. She had no regrets. Not about the divorce. Not about standing her ground over the house. Not about raising her son mostly on her own. Maybe, just maybe, it was thanks to her ex-mother-in-law's manipulations that she saw Diego's true nature before it was too late. The house that could have become a source of conflict had instead become her fortress, a safe space for her son. A place where there was no fear of manipulation, scheming, or attempts to take away what rightfully belonged to her. Valeria gently placed her son back on the grass and stepped aside, watching as he once again tried to get to his feet. This was what her life was filled with now: small victories, genuine joy, peace, and the absence of toxic people. The story of the gift had truly become a family legend. Her parents now advised all their friends to register property in their children's names before marriage. After all, you never know what surprises married life might bring, or whose side your partner will take when it truly matters. Matteo stood up again and, beaming, took a few wobbly steps toward his mother. His tiny arms were stretched forward, his eyes shining with trust and love. Valeria crouched down and opened her arms wide, and the little boy, stepping unsteadily, walked toward her, toward the new life they were building together, day by day, step by step. Without Diego. Without his family. Without the compromises she would have had to make if she had stayed in that relationship. Sometimes a breakup isn't the end. It's a beginning. A beginning of something real, built not on the sand of manipulation and others' expectations, but on the solid ground of self-respect and love. For herself. And for those who truly deserve it.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.